Hello everyone and welcome to another Euro 2024 episode on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy and I'm your host for today's show. The Euros has finally concluded and what an ending it was in the final as Spain beat England 2-1 with minutes remaining. We'll discuss the final in more detail during the show, but then we'll also do our Euro 2024 awards and I'll also present my team of the tournament. So let's begin with the match review of the final. And for the neutral, this was a great game as both teams played their part in the spectacle. So let's go through the key moments of the game. Spain started the game positively as expected. They kept the ball really well and played high possession football. But it was Foden who had the best chance of the first half. Great cross from Declan Rice from the free kick, who manages to find Foden on the left side of the 6-yard box. But his effort was hit straight at the keeper. Arguably, I think he probably should have controlled the ball and then angled the shot a bit better there. But easy to say as a spectator, as the ball came at him, slightly unexpected as well. And that was half-time. But before the second half began, we were told that Rodri is unable to continue and will be substituted. Now, that should have given England a huge boost, as arguably the best player in the Spanish team is no longer playing. The second half begins, and quite frankly, I don't think England turned up, as Spain were breezing past the team that was in white and did it with no effort whatsoever. And it didn't take long for Spain to break the deadlock. The recently turned 17-year-old Lamine Yamal produces another great bit of play from the right-hand side as he threads the through ball to Nico Williams, who's charging down the left channel. He finds himself in acres of space in the box and slots it in clinically with his left foot. Now the question is, where on earth was Kyle Walker? Absolute schoolboy defending. He should not be positioned so centrally. As a right-sided centre-back in a back three, you should be occupying the edge of your box. And yeah, just should have done better. Should have realised the danger that was coming through that channel, as you've got an out-and-out winger in Nico Williams there. But then moments later, Spain should have made it 2-0. It was a similar move from the first goal, but this time it was Carvajal who finds Nico Williams in plenty of space. He cuts in, and everyone's expecting him to shoot, but he cleverly slides the ball towards Olmo. But unfortunately, Olmo couldn't find the accuracy of his shot as he drags it wide. Morata then almost adds himself onto the score sheet, but his effort is cleared off the line. Lovely through ball by Yamal. In the same build-up play, Nico Williams has a shot, but his shot also misses the target. Now, around the hour mark, Gareth Southgate made the substitutions, or should I say that one particular substitution that I'm sure a lot of us fans were yelling at the screen, and that was to take off Harry Kane for Watkins, as Harry Kane was pretty much MIA in the first half and also in the second. Cole Palmer also came onto the pitch in place of Kobbie Mainoo. Apparently, he's been praised as the legend killer by a certain content creator. Now, for me, Rodri had him in his pocket throughout the whole game. So, no one's going to mention that as it doesn't fit the narrative. But in regards to the game, England almost equalised as Bellingham produces a great turn past three players, including Carvajal, who ended up falling to ground. He applies the left-footed shot, but unfortunately couldn't hit the target. Then minutes later, now I thought this was the moment for Spain, as Olmo threads the through ball to Yamal on the right-hand side. He drives with the ball through on goal, hits a low shot, but it was powered away fantastically by Pickford. A huge opportunity for the youngster there. But England produced a counter-attack as Cucurella finds himself out of position. Cole Palmer threads the through ball to Saka, who exploits the space and attacks that right flank. He passes to Bellingham, who lays it off to Palmer on the edge of the box, and he hits a fantastic low shot into the bottom corner. Slight deflection, but he hit the ball with so much power, it was enough to rattle the net. And at that stage, you're thinking, game on. But could England capitalise? Unfortunately not. They were unable to produce any goal-scoring opportunities after the first goal. Spain came close to extending the lead as Nico Williams and Olmo were playing 1-2s on the edge of the box. Yamal finds himself through on goal, hits a shot with power, but unfortunately hits it straight at the keeper. For me, maybe should have done better there. But Spain then produced one of the best team goals of the tournament. The move starts with Dani Olmo producing an exquisite pass with the outside of his foot to OZWRLD. He lays it off to Cucurella. OZWRLD finds himself in the middle of the box, and then Cucurella produces an inch-perfect low cross. And you can see OZWRLD drives into the box and applies a sliding finish to give Spain the lead in the 86th minute. What a goal. And that pretty much summarized Spain's intricate play throughout the tournament. They're just a level above England and have been throughout the game. But England somehow almost found the equaliser through a corner kick. Cole Palmer takes it and then Declan Rice hits the header towards goal. Saved by the keeper, but he only parries it away, probably a few yards out. Gay then gets onto the rebound, but unfortunately his header is cleared off the line by Dani Olmo, who ends up celebrating like he scored a goal. And to be fair, rightly so, as it was a valuable and crucial moment to the game. For me, Gay probably should have done better, in my opinion. But a late charge from England almost brought the score to level. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case in the end. And that was the end of the game. Commiserations to England. We played much better in this game than they have done previously. It's a shame that there were some fights and all sorts of chaos after the game in Berlin, but also in the UK, as some fans couldn't control their emotions. But you have to be proud of the England team, the way they've managed to reach the final once again. Yes, I know they failed to win, and it's 2 finals in 3 years, but England weren't getting into finals when they had the golden generation. So as England fans, you can't feel too privileged to be in these sort of positions. It's still a proud moment for the team to reach this far. But having said that, I think the tactics throughout the tournament cost England. They switched to a 3-4-2-1 formation, and it added a bit of balance to the team. I think Southgate maybe should have gone a step further and play a 3-2-4-1 formation. Now, you're probably thinking that's pretty much the same thing, isn't it? Well, the key difference is that the 2 wide players in the midfield are actual out-and-out wide players. Under Southgate, he played a left back in left mid and the right mid in the correct position, which was right mid, which ended up being Saka. I think he probably should have played someone who has more of an attacking instinct on that left-hand side, but at the same time, someone that can contribute to the team in terms of their pressing and helping out with defensive duties. The player I'd had in mind, I mentioned quite a few times in my watch-alongs, was Eze. I think he would have added a better output on that left side, but it wasn't to be. Also, Southgate announced his resignation. He pretty much stepped down from his position, and it was kind of half expected. I think he's done a good job for England, but I just feel like England need to find a coach that's a bit more tap-minded and that can really take this team forward. So the rumours are currently that it's Eddie Howe or Graham Potter. I think either options would be a good appointment for the new England role that's come up now. So let's see what happens. But yes, they do need to find an attack-minded manager. Nationality is not really of a big deal, I don't think, but I think fans would prefer it to be an English manager. But let's see what happens with regards to that. But let's give some credit to Spain, who were spectacular throughout the game, and they were the worthy winners. They were by far the best team in the tournament, winning 7 out of 7 games, and they did it in style in terms of how they played and how they scored their goals. They've got some future stars in Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal, who certainly lit up the tournament. Now, I wouldn't say this was the best Euros, but there were certainly some games that produced great drama and entertainment in the last few weeks. And that's the end of our match review. Before we conclude the show, I'll present the Football Talk Podcast Awards for the Euros, and then I'll also reveal my team of the tournament. But before I do, just have a couple of comments here. For Man United fans who says, hello, big up yourself. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in. And I've also got Hakeem says, big up Ozzy. Big up Hakeem. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for tuning in as well. So now on to the awards. So I'll name out the categories and then I'll go in a bit more detail. So we've got 5 categories. So best player of the tournament, best young player of the tournament, best goal of the tournament, surprise team of the tournament, and flop of the tournament. So some of them won't be huge surprises, but it's still customary for us to do. So the first is best player of the tournament. I've gone for Nico Williams. Now, in terms of goals, he didn't get the highest numbers. He got 2 goals and 1 assist, but I feel like the impact he had on the team and the way he played, he was just unstoppable at times. So he certainly lit up the competition, and he was a player that I've seen before and I've been aware of, but now he's become a household name. He will be highly sought after, especially as he's got a release clause in his contract. So it'll be interesting to see where he plays his football next season. But in terms of how he's done for Spain, phenomenal. I think he was just unplayable at times. Gave them a different dimension that you don't really have a lot of wingers in that Spanish team. But I feel like he certainly lived up to the bill. Now, the next player or the category is best young player of the tournament. No huge surprises. Lamine Yamal, 16-year-old when the tournament began. People were probably saying, it's a bit too soon for such a young player. Thing is, if you're talented enough, you're old enough. So I've been very impressed with how he's performed, the maturity in his play, his selection of passing, even just his technique of crossing the ball with the outside of his foot and even with short backlift as well. It's unbelievable. So very impressive. He got 1 goal to his name, which was the goal against France, which was a spectacular goal, and 4 assists. So he was a playmaker for this team. So I feel like he was phenomenal and deserves to get this award. Now I think I've just touched on it. Best goal of the tournament, I have to give it to Yamal versus France. The close one for that would have been OZWRLD against Georgia. That was a spectacular strike as well. But I think this one just had something else about it. And it was the magnitude of the game, the opponent, and doing it the way he did as well. Because Spain were trailing at the time. It just set them up in a very good mood and kind of got on the win from there onwards. So for me, that goal certainly stood out. And in terms of the surprise team of the tournament, I give it to Turkey. Now, Turkey do have some players that are, we're quite familiar with in terms of European football. But as a team, as a collective, I thought they were really good. Defensively sound, but very aggressive when they're attacking as well. So OZWRLD definitely stood up for me. Kadioglu, the left back, he was good. The goalkeeper, Konak, as well, made some spectacular saves. Yilmaz up top. They had some good players. Kochku as well, the centre midfielder. So some real good talent there. And they really surprised me in terms of how they played, because they played the same way in every game and almost beat Netherlands to progress further into the tournament. But I feel like they were a breath of fresh air in terms of how they played. And there were other teams that did the same. Austria were on the same level as well. I think Georgia surprised many, and the win against Portugal was one for the history books because it was such a spectacular win for the nation. So hard one to pick, but I've gone for Turkey in the end. Now, flop of the tournament, this might be a little bit controversial in terms of who it is. I've gone for a team rather than an individual. I've gone for France. Now, if I have to speak individuals as well, it would probably have to be Mbappe. I thought he was quite poor in this tournament. But as a collective, I thought France were awful. Yes, they made it through to the semis. Well done to them. But this was the team that was supposed to walk through everyone. Apparently, they had the best squad and the best players. None of them turned up. They've only scored 4 goals in the whole competition, and they've arrived at the semi-final. 2 goals were scored, and 1 was conceded in the group stages. Then they beat 1-0 against Belgium in the last 16, and then 0-0 in the quarters, and they lost 2-1 to Spain. So that doesn't sound like a team that you would regard as world beaters or a team that has the best players in world football. On paper, yes, and individually they do have a lot of great talent in that team. But Deschamps, I don't know, he just didn't have the right balance in the team. I think the weak link in that team was Rabiot. I don't think he was a player that should have started in every game, more or less. I think Camavinga should have taken his place. He would just added a different dynamic to that team. Young, energetic, but really good on the ball and defensively sound as well. More of a all-rounder in my opinion. So little tweaks here and there. I don't think Deschamps knew who to play. He kept on rotating the front players, which probably didn't help. But yeah, not the best of performance. So I'm going to say they're the flop of the tournament because I expected a lot more from them. Yes, on paper they got through to the semis and they lost to the winners. So can't be too harsh on them, but they never turned up. And you know what? There's a lot of teams that for me didn't turn up. So another strong contender would have been Portugal. I even have to put England in that category because I feel like they were pretty poor and rode their luck because they got the easier ties into the road to that final. So yeah, that's just my opinion. So drop a comment, let me know what you guys think in terms of these categories. So what we'll do now before we end the show, I will present my team of the tournament. So if you're watching live, feel free to get involved and let me know who you'd select in each position. So we'll start with the goalkeeper. But what I'll do as I'm presenting the team, I will give out some honorable mentions because this was not an easy one for me to do. It could have been easy just to put all Spanish players, but I had to really dig down and think about the matches that I watched and who really stood out for me. So in goal, the honorable mentions go to Kunak, the Turkish goalkeeper, who made that spectacular save against Austria. That was literally the match winner, and he was good throughout the tournament. Diogo Costa, who was a penalty stopper, like a king penalty stopper, especially against Slovakia, I think it was, or was it Slovenia? I'm not too sure, but he saved 3 penalties there. And Oblak, I thought for Slovenia, he was so solid. They only conceded 2 goals in the whole competition, and they got 2 to quarter. So you got to give your credit to Oblak. And Oblak is probably a name that we're all familiar with. So maybe that's why he hasn't got the praise because we expect that kind of level quality from him. But the player that I've gone for is Mamadashvili, the Georgia goalkeeper. For me, he really stood out. He was a player that I was familiar with, but I hadn't seen much of him in action. He made some spectaculars. I think he got the highest number of saves throughout the tournament. So he was kept busy, but he made some really crucial saves to keep Georgia in the ties and help them progress further into the tournament. So for me, he is the goalkeeper of the tournament. Now, in terms of the back 4, let's start with right back. So honorable mentions probably go to Dumfries, who for me was probably a surprise choice. I would have preferred, or I would have expected Ronald Koeman to play Frimpong, who's had a phenomenal season for Bayer Leverkusen, but he decided to go for Dumfries, and he did a decent job, to be fair. Obviously, he had that one game where it was against England where he gave the penalty away and probably should have helped with scoring a goal for the Dutch. But I think generally he was decent throughout the tournament. Kimmich was another one playing, I want to say in an unfamiliar role because he has played right back in the past, but he's more of a midfielder nowadays. But in this tournament, he had to drop back, play as a right back, and he was a ball playing right back as well. So he definitely helped in terms of the build-up play for Germany. And Carvajal, despite his age right now, he's still doing a decent job. Got a cheeky a red card in the quarters, knowing he'd probably start in the final. So that's his experience there for you right now. But in terms of my right back of the tournament, I'm going for Koundé. Now, despite France's poor performance throughout the tournament, he for me stood out. I just don't feel like a lot of them were on the same wavelength because he would bomb down that right flank and provide so many crosses, but the attackers just weren't on the same wave, and this didn't really take advantage of his delivery, to be honest. So I thought his all-round game, he was really, really good. So I'm giving Koundé my right back position in my team. So let's go for left back, and then we'll finish off with the centre back position. So left back, honourable mention Nuno Mendes. I don't think he started the tournament very well, but as the tournament went on, he showed a bit more of his quality. Didn't really stand out for me, I think, in comparison to other names I'm going to mention. But I feel like he had a decent enough tournament to get a shout out. Another one is Cucurella. Now, I'm sure a lot of people expected him to be in my lineup there. I haven't been overly impressed with him throughout the tournament. Yes, the second goal, the winning goal, came through his assist, and it was a great assist. But I'm trying to judge him based on his overall tournament performance, and I thought he was a bit up and down. So that's just my thoughts on Cucurella. Another one that I was quite impressed with, and he was quite close to being my first choice, is Hanko, the Slovakian fullback slash centre back. He played left back for his nation there. I thought he was really, really good. Um, really strong on the ball, but very efficient in terms of his use of the ball and his variation in his passing. Really impressive, and he's been linked to Liverpool, so one to kind of keep an ear out for in terms of potential links to the club in this summer. So we'll see what happens. But in terms of performance for Slovakia, I thought he was really good. So the player that I'm going for, and I mentioned him earlier in the show, is Kadioglu. An interesting player. I think in his career he's played in midfield, attack, and you can kind of tell in his all-round game. So now he's predominantly a left back, but he's really comfortable on the ball, can come infield, but can also attack that flank as well and provide some great crosses. His all-round play, I was quite impressed with. Not a player that I was hugely familiar with, but I feel like he was very impressive in terms of how he played. So he takes the left back position in my team. Now the centre back pairing, I think there's a lot of names dished out, and it could be anyone. It could. There was quite a number of candidates that could have been selected. So for the right side centre back role, the honourable mentions go to Demiral, the Turkish centre back who scored a couple of goals in the match. He stood out for me. Stones for England, I think he was probably the only decent player for me. Gay was good as well, but Stones, I think, had a little bit more in terms of his ball playing ability and was a solid rock in that England defence. Unfortunately, from an attacking point of view, they didn't really live up to their reputation. And Bijol as well, the Slovakian centre back. The Slovenian centre back. As I mentioned, Oblak. They only conceded 2 goals throughout the tournament. He had a big part to play with that as well. He was a rock for that team, and I thought he really stood up for me whenever I did the watch-alongs. So these are honourable mention, but the player that I've gone for and the right side centre back role is Rudiger. I know Germany didn't progress to the final, to that stage, but I feel like whenever he played, really stood out. You could see his leadership qualities and never die attitude, always put his body on the line on numerous occasions. So that's what I've gone for Rudiger. I thought he was fantastic in this tournament. Now, the left side centre back position, honourable mentions. So Calafiori, I know he scored an own goal, but let's just ignore that part. But I think generally he was very impressive for Italy, and it looks like he will be getting a move to the Premier League soon as well. That's how much he's impressed the likes of Arsenal. So for me, he definitely stood out. And speaking of Arsenal, another player would be Saliba. I think he was a decent performer for France. And one, whether we love him or hate him, you got to give him a mention. Pepe for Portugal. I thought he was solid despite his age. Or is he 40, 41? still did a decent job. Obviously, the last game, I feel like against France, you could tell the tiredness sort of like came, hit him due to his age. But generally, I thought he was really solid, really hard to play against. But the player that I've selected for that left side centre back role is Laporte. Been very impressive with him. We all know him from the Premier League, obviously when he used to play for Man City. But because he's moved over to Saudi Arabia, you're thinking, is he still able to compete at this level, at the highest level? And for me, he hasn't lost a step. He's looks really solid, very good on the ball. His passing range is absolutely ridiculous. So standout performer for me. Probably one of the first names I put when I was writing down my defense. So yeah, he definitely stood out. So that is my back four. Now moving on to midfield. I think this won't be a very hard one, but let's see what we can come up with. So the defensive mid, in terms of honourable mentions, let's mention Kante. I know France didn't have the best of tournaments, but Kante for me worked hard. He was the energy in that midfield. I just feel like there was a disconnect between midfield and attack, and it doesn't come from Kante and it doesn't come from Tchouaméni. It comes from the other midfielder. For me, that should be Camavinga, but it was Rabiot, and I just don't feel like he was suited for that role because he's quite defensive minded. So that's why that dynamic didn't work. But generally, I think Kante was really good. And another player was Lobotka, the Slovakian international. I thought he was really, really good, really solid player. Good on the ball, but in terms of his tackling and reading of the game, yeah, you can see why he plays for a club like Napoli. Really top quality. But the player I've gone for, no huge surprises. The candidate for Ballon d'Or due to his nation winning the tournament now is Rodri. Yeah. If you have any arguments, argue among yourselves because I don't really have any other player that even comes close to Rodri taking at DM role there. So that's my selection there. Now, in terms of the right-sided midfield role, bit of a tricky one because there wasn't a lot of stand-up performance for me in terms of England. I don't think no one really stood out. So I've gone for players that played in midfield but also played a bit further up as a number 10 or as a right winger at times, a right midfield at times. So, they haven't been selected, but I was impressed because of their versatility. So the first was Baumgartner, the Austrian midfielder. I thought he was really good, really positive in terms of his output. Fortunately, wasn't clinical enough to beat Turkey, but generally, I thought he had a good all-round game. Another one was Xavi Simons. I was very impressed. The goal he scored against England was spectacular. Fortunately, not able to get the win for his nation, but for me, he had a good performance as well. So, in terms of that role, I don't think it goes to anyone else but Danny Olmo. Wasn't even a starter at the start of the tournament, but due to Pedri's unfortunate injury, he capitalized and took the team forward, and he produced some magnificent play. His passing range, his flair on the ball, he definitely for me stood out for Spain. So I won't be surprised if he gets a big move this summer, and he deserves it because he's been a player that has played for Leipzig for a few years. I'm not sure why no one's actually gone after him, but that's just my thoughts there. But yeah, fantastic tournament, and it only helps with his profile as well. Now, the left-sided centre back position, centre mid position, you've got Cruz, who would have been a decent one. I feel like he had a decent tournament, but not as impactful as I probably would have seen Cruz. But you got to consider his age and the role he played. As he played more of a double pivot rather than a number 8. And then you've got Reinders as well, the Dutch midfielder, box to box. I thought he was a good performer for Spain as well. But I'm going for an all Spanish defense. I'm going for Fabian Ruiz. A player that I've been familiar with, he used to play for Napoli and he's moved over to PSG. But I was very impressed in terms of his all-round game. He was so confident on the ball, so composed, picked the right passes at the right time, didn't overplay, kept it neat and tidy. And you need those type of midfielders in your team. And not only that, he definitely contributed, his box to box that time. I remember him scoring a goal in the tournament as well. So he definitely played his part. And I feel like this midfield there was the perfect balance, and probably why they were able to excel and do so well in this tournament. So that is my midfield three. Yes, I know it's an all Spanish midfield, but there wasn't really much rivalry in terms of anyone taking their roles. So that's my selection there. Unfortunately, the trend is going to continue with the right wing, but let's give out some honourable mentions. So Arda Güler for me definitely stood out. Obviously, a player that plays for Real Madrid, so expecting big things from him anyway. But to be the talisman of your national team at this age, yeah, he's a special talent. So really stood up for me. If it wasn't for the player that I'm going to present, he would definitely have been in my starting lineup. And I've gone for Ivan Strands as well, who for me scored 3 goals in the tournament as well. So he's definitely a player that made a mark in this tournament. But the player I've gone for, no, who's surprised, is Lamine Yamal for that right wing role. Just turned 17. He passed his exams and he's won Euro 2024. What a summer it's been for the young player there. Now in terms of left wing, my apologies, I'm going to continue the same theme. But let's get out some honourable mentions. Someone might be surprised I haven't added him to the lineup. The honourable mentions to Gakpo. And for me, yeah, it definitely was a talisman for his nation in terms of the Netherlands, because in terms of attacking output, there wasn't really anyone else apart from Xavi Simons who got on the score sheet or whoever possessed a danger in front of goal. So I feel like he definitely stood out, and he was definitely one of the star performers of the tournament. And another honourable mention is Musiala. A lot might be surprised I haven't selected him, but yeah, he's also got 3 goals to his name. But the player I've gone for was my player of the tournament, so I can't claim for you to be the player of the tournament not having my lineup. So, and that is Nico Williams. He has been phenomenal in this tournament. So that's the player that I've selected. Now the striker that I'm going to go for, I've seen other sort of team of the tournament from other media outlets, and they've played players in the wrong position. I've tried to do it as authentic as possible, where I've played people in the correct positions and on their correct size as well. So the player that I've gone for might be a surprise to many, but he stood up for me, and that is the Georgian striker, Mikotadze. I thought he was very good. Joint top scorer with Gakpo and Musiala and others, with 3 goals to his name. It was just his energy and work rate for the Georgian team that really impressed me. Good finisher as well. I think he's just signed for Lens. Otherwise, he would have gathered a lot more interest from other clubs. But I'm sure scouts from other clubs will be keeping an eye on him in terms of his progress next season, because he looks like a talent to me. So that is the striker I've gone for. There weren't really a lot of number 9s that stood out for me. So honorable mentions go to Yilmaz, the Turkish striker. He was very close for me to be selected in this one, because he had the same kind of output and contribution as Mikotadze, really hardworking, attacking the channels with such aggression. I remember there was one moment against the Netherlands where he breezed past Van Dijk, and Van Dijk had to just shoulder barge him, so he didn't get through on goal. So he definitely was a menace to the opposition. I feel like he really stood out, and he definitely did his country proud. And another one might not be a popular name in terms of his ability or his general play, is Morata. I thought it was a very good performance from the striker. Yes, he wasn't prolific in front of goal, but he was the team player. He really worked hard. He pressed from the front, and that helped the way the team was set. That helped the way spaces were created for the wingers. So he might not be on the score sheet, but he definitely played a part to Spain's success. So that is the player that I feel like deserves an honorable mention. Unfortunately, not enough to get into my team. And this is my lineup. So drop a comment and let me know what you guys think. If there's any changes that you'd want to make, or I've completely missed out a player, I haven't even mentioned him as an honorable mention, feel free to drop a comment and let me know. And that is the end of the show, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to Man United fans and Hakeem for your comment. Appreciate your engagement as always, guys. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. In terms of upcoming content, I will be doing a transfer talk show. So we're back to doing transfer content again. This will be taking place tomorrow. It's episode 5. So make sure to tune in for that. And on Thursday evening, I'll be doing a Liverpool transfer talk show, episode 5, 10 p.m. on Thursday. So make sure you hit your notification bell so you're notified of when I go live. You can also follow me on social media for all the latest updates. You can follow me at Aussie.ftp on Instagram, and you can also follow me on TikTok and Threads with the same ID. So thank you as always, guys. Not the best of tournaments, but it was still a worthy watch nonetheless. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to see you guys very, very soon. Goodbye.